Life was always complicated, but believe it or not, there used to be a time where life was simpler. Where you mainly have to focus on survival and finding and maintaining a family, which is no easy task, sure, but you could at least quantifiably see the food you've put on the table, or how most old jobs involve tedious but relatively uncomplicated physical labor. Now you have to press some numbers and letters on a keyboard or some other device in just the right way, and a mouse to do clicks for 8 or more hours straight. Go home, go to bed, just to do the same thing again, most likely receiving some financial compensation at the end of the month. And with this thing called money, you can now exchange it for goods and services, but you need to carefully keep track of your expenses, because once it runs out, you're done for. The modern lifestyle is so far removed from our original hunter-gatherer roots, we're almost completely unrecognizable even when considering other civilizations throughout history. These advancements in technology have fundamentally changed the way we communicate with each other and our interactions throughout the day. I'm not saying that being close to nature is the ideal way to live, or if living our lives in a naturalistic way is good in the first place, but come on, I can stimulate my brain more in 5 minutes than what our ancestors could achieve in 5 years. There's this second filter covering our entire life now. Most people nowadays communicate more through social media than in real life. We look at our phones or PCs just as much or more than actually looking outside and observing the world for yourself, and we get constant media coverage on how the world is going to end tomorrow and why. We distance ourselves from nearly everything that used to be part of the human experience, so where are we now? At what point does our life get so abstract that someone from 50 years ago would not be able to recognize the world we live in? Putting ourselves in this sort of Skinner box. The quarantine obviously made everything worse and sped up our social distancing path that we were on by 1,000%. With our communication skills paradoxically being at an all-time low, a lot of people now speak in short quotes or references, devolving us back to illiterate times where people also tended to use a lot of Bible quotes to communicate, because that was one of the few books being read aloud to them. The new iteration of the Bible is actually quite similar in its purpose, but instead of being the book of all books, it's just the sum of all knowledge humanity has acquired so far. You know, just a slight upgrade. This referring to Western nations, of course. There are so many regions in our world that have a long-standing oral tradition, which was mocked by the West at first for being quote-unquote inferior. But I think those hunter-gatherer societies are better off than the West now, mental health-wise. I mean, in some indigenous tribes in Africa, suicide is a foreign concept to them, while in most of the Western world, it's becoming tragically more common. I guess that's what happens when you choose efficiency over literally everything else. I mean, what's the point of living if you can't live at least 5 lifetimes in a month? During our optimization of everything, have we never asked ourselves if our brains themselves are optimized well enough to consume gigabytes of potentially harmful information at any moment? With our advancements in mental health being so far behind our advancements in technology, I urge you to limit your use because we're literally just experimenting on our brains like it's going to have no consequences whatsoever in the future. As long as we haven't figured out how to improve our mental health in a consistent manner, we're just going to have to stop our overusage of technology. Obviously, easier said than done, but we only have so many choices. Furthermore, time is of the essence. The longer we search for some sort of compromise between healthy and unhealthy usage of technology, people are actively suffering the negative effects. So going with the simple, just close your laptop, bro, might be our best option right now. We don't even have that many options to begin with, so we have to start making executive decisions as soon as possible. It may sound like a semi-solid solution at first, to adjust your lifestyle in such a way that you don't need any social media or short-form content, but this puts all of the burden on the individual, even though it's also a systemic issue. We even tried doing this before with climate change and how you shouldn't buy plastic straws because that's a war crime against all turtles, and look where it got us. Oil companies keep absolutely decimating nature, and like more than half of Africa, and we are now worse off than when we started off. and our straws get soggy now. Not a problem for me though, because I was always a chat sipper. What I'm trying to say is that if we do the same mistake again and tell those tech companies to continue business as usual, people will suffer, even if they want to stop, because that's another thing. If you get addicted to, for example, social media and get used to the quote-unquote modern lifestyle, it is unfathomably difficult to get out of it. Because how are you supposed to talk to all of your friends that only exist inside the computer, and what do people watch when they're bored, and there's no Subway Surfers in Netflix? How do I Google to find all the solutions in seconds? You would need to basically uproot your life and turn it upside down, which will probably lead to abysmal mental health in the short term, as if it wasn't hard enough, just so you can reap the benefits of your dedication to return to a non-modern lifestyle in some uncertain future. Just coping with your current technological despair is simply easier, and boy do humans love the path of least resistance. On top of all of that, social media companies will try their absolute hardest to keep you hooked, because they're incentivized by your money, and trying to fight against an algorithm that was funded by billions of dollars to optimally exploit human nature is an uphill battle to say the least. If the hill was made entirely out of lava and your hands are tied behind your back. So I do personally think that the government stepping in and putting a stop to the blatant exploitation of human desires is a step in the right direction, but once again, the government is as incompetent as it is powerful, resulting in the TikTok hearing. You've probably already seen at least 10 videos on that train wreck, but in short, they know nothing about technology, really. The government did also use the war on drugs, which, might I add, they started themselves. So how are they supposed to fight against the most powerful drug in the 21st century? The internet. Me personally, I think I'll try to find a log cabin deep inside the woods and wear a pointy red hat while chanting some gnomish chants and find my gnome brethren. Take the gnome pill, everybody, and we'll be just fine. And thank you very, very much for watching right until the end. Remember to take your government-mandated cheese pills while chanting how you are not crazy because you knew it was 1216. You knew he swapped those numbers. Are you telling me a tower just happens to fall like that? No. Jet fuel can't melt steel beams, Jimmy.